I think a lot of people in the industry see these issues and have talked about them for a long time. I think the thing that was missing, frankly, was a regulator that was willing to sort of stand up to very powerful firms or very powerful people. I think we have that now, but these things all take time. It takes time to undo decades worth of, structure and rules and even legislation.
That's interesting that you say you think we have that sort of regulator now. And because I posted on Twitter just when we started saying, does anyone want to ask me a question? Or when I asked Dave a question. Yeah. So a couple of people have mentioned things about the SEC and Gery Gensler. What is your take on it? Because there was a lot of positivity when he first came to the SEC. People were looking at him. I watched some of his lectures back when he was, I think it was MIT, and he was doing ones on like cryptocurrency and cryptography. And it seemed like he genuinely had an understanding of the markets and had a view that there was a way to regulate them that would not cause them to all come crashing down. And then it seems like his rhetoric has slowly been toned down over the past sort of year and a half or 2 years since he took over. And it seems like, especially, I think he really missed a trick on SBF, on Sam Bankman-Fried, for whatever reason that is. We'll not speculate. But do you think he's someone out there like genuinely interested in trying to bring some of these large financial players under a bit more control, or is he falling victim to industry capture in the same way that many regulatory agencies do?
So I'll say a couple of things. First, on SBF and FTX, a lot of people were very fooled by that. A lot of international money from him. Yeah, a lot of international regulators, a lot of politicians took a lot of money on every side, right? There's no one that sort of has their hands clean here. So I think that I'm going to leave that because, that was a pretty messed up situation. And, criminals are really good. Like Bernie Madoff was really good at having people not see what he was doing. And that's usually what very talented criminals are good at. I think that the other side of that question, I have what appears to be an unpopular opinion that yes, I think Gery Gensler is trying to fix things and trying to come in and take on some very powerful firms. I've been around this for a while. I've seen several SEC chairs and many SEC commissioners, interacted with many of them. And none of them have been willing to take on these firms. And so I think it's very easy for people who have never really paid attention to the regulatory process in the past for the last, let's say, 20 years to come in and say, why haven't changes been made already in the next, why don't you just change things today or tomorrow or in 6 months? And it's very easy to say that. And it kind of just doesn't acknowledge the fact that there are laws that have to be followed in order to create new regulations, and that you're dealing with a system that's been in place for decades. And, it's been designed to look good and to be defensible and to make it easy to sort of sow disinformation and gaslight people. And that these are, Citadel, Ken Griffin is one of the top political donors to the GOP, right? Like, what you think that's easy to address? Like, we are dealing with a very corrupt country and a very corrupt political system, and often with regulators that have been captured in all sorts of different ways, whether it's sort of subtly through big law and fancy, perks, or whether it's explicit revolving doors where top people at regulators are now working at Citadel, right? So person after person from the Fed, from the SEC have gone to work at Citadel and now come in to lobby on a regular basis with people that they worked with in the past. Like, who thought that would be easy to change? And it's funny, like from Gensler's perspective, he can do no right. So everyone in retail that I talk to is like, why hasn't it been fixed yet? What's going on? And everyone in the industry is like, why is he doing so much? This is crazy, right? Like he's a nut job. What? All these new regulations, and retail's like, what are you talking about? He hasn't done shit. And everyone else is like, hey, this is the craziest liberal nut job I've ever seen. And it's like, it's like you don't even, you're sitting in the middle and you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? So, yeah, not only is it an impossible situation, but the equity market structure proposals that came out last December are the first significant changes to markets in 18 years, since 2005. They would most likely end Citadel and Virtu's control over markets. Like, they specifically are targeted to do many things, but this is one of the things that as an outcome of the regulations that would happen. It's exactly what people want. And so many people, so many retail investors who don't think he's doing the right thing on equity markets, we've tried to explain it. We've tried to point out how important it is. And we've gotten so many people sort of on board with that. We've gotten thousands of comment letters filed, through our different initiatives. And I think that's wonderful and it's amazing. And it's exactly what people should want to do. They should want to be involved in the regulatory process. But at the same time, again, it's like, I think expectations that, result in thinking that he's not doing anything, I just think it's it's kind of disconnected from how the system works. And you might say, well, that means we need to blow up the system. And oh, fine, you can believe that if you want. But then, okay, so what are you doing to blow up the system, right? And how do you do that without causing mass poverty and mass economic pain? And what comes out of it? Like, what do you have on the other end of it? I struggle to see the answers to those questions. And then, like you're saying, on the crypto side of things, I don't know. I haven't engaged with the SEC much on crypto. I talk a lot about it on my podcast. I've had people, we've devoted several episodes to talking about crypto. We're doing another one next week. And trying to say, is crypto a security? What do you think from a legal perspective? What do you think from a financial and securitization perspective? And, I'm not going to sort of pretend to know the answer. I think there are many cryptocurrencies that have a lot of aspects of securities. And, what I think Gensler did is he came in and he said, these are the tools I have. Nobody is doing anything. So maybe I should. People say, well, the CFTC should. Well, what is the CFTC doing? Did the CFTC figure out FTX? No. Did the SEC? No. I think you see a huge number of people lose a lot of money through scams like that. And as a regulator, if you care, you say, man, maybe I should be doing something. And if no one else is going to, if Congress is not going to act, which is really what should have happened this entire time, Congress should have explicitly laid out the framework for what these things are, who's going to regulate them, and how. If you're someone who cares and doesn't like to see people being scammed out of money, often people that can't afford to be scammed, I think it is a very natural impulse to say, I'm going to try and do something. And I do think if you look at his record in the courts and the SEC's record in the courts in crypto, it's almost flawless. And almost, of course, because there have been a couple of defeats, especially recently. But before that, I think the courts were very much on the SEC's side. And I don't think anything is really settled at this point on crypto.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for making it right the way to the end of the podcast. I love that you tuned in this long. Do me a favor, hit subscribe, because 80% of you bastards are not subscribing, but you're watching my videos. See you next time.